Have you ever poured a rye, taken one sip, and thought, why does this taste like peppery furniture polish? Rye whiskey is supposed to be bold, spicy, and electric, not harsh, flat, or confusing. Today, we're ranking 15 of the most popular rye whiskeys in America from worst to best, based on balance, flavor, cocktail power, and that dangerous moment when you realize you're already reaching for a second pour. Some of these bottles are legends, some are overhyped, and one of them absolutely deserves a permanent spot on your shelf. Let's start at the bottom and work our way toward rye royalty. Number 15. Old Overholt Bottled in Bond. Let's get one thing straight. Old Overholt is not a bad whiskey. It's honest, historic, and dependable. But in a ranking of the best rye whiskeys, dependable isn't enough. This bottle is the definition of old school rye. Bottled in bond, 100 proof, and built on tradition, it delivers exactly what it promises. Dry grain, sharp pepper, a flicker of caramel, and then a quick exit. Nothing offensive, nothing broken. Just very little surprise. Where old Overholt struggles is depth. The spice shows up early, but it doesn't evolve. The mid-palate feels thin, and the finish disappears before it can leave an impression. In cocktails, it behaves well, especially in an old-fashioned, but it rarely upgrades the drink. It simply exists inside it. This is the rye you buy when you want something affordable that won't embarrass you. And that's fine. But when the goal is excitement, personality, and that second sip moment where you pause and go, wait, this is good. Overholt never quite gets there. Respectable? Absolutely. Memorable? Not even close. Number 14. Bullet 95. Rye. Bullet rye is the whiskey equivalent of a perfectly clean white shirt. It looks good. It works everywhere. But nobody writes poems about it. This rye is smooth, approachable, and almost aggressively polite. You get soft vanilla, light honey, gentle pepper, and a clean finish that doesn't linger long enough to argue with you. And for beginners, that's exactly why people love it. It doesn't bite, it doesn't burn, it doesn't scare bourbon drinkers away from rye. But that friendliness comes at a cost. The spice feels restrained, the texture is thin, and while it mixes beautifully in cocktails, it rarely leads them. In a Manhattan, it behaves. In an old-fashioned, it disappears slightly behind sugar and bitters. Bullet rye ranks low not because it's flawed, but because it plays it safe. This is rye with training wheels. Great for starting your rye journey. Not great if you're chasing character, power, or complexity. It's the bottle everyone owns, and almost nobody remembers. Number 13. Sazerac Straight. Rye. This one comes with history attached, and that alone earns it respect. The Sazerac name carries New Orleans energy, cocktail culture, and serious whiskey heritage. And the rye itself is quietly good. On the nose, you get clove, vanilla, soft licorice, and a gentle wave of spice. The first sip is clean and balanced, leaning more sweet than sharp, with cinnamon and toasted grain carrying you through. It's easy to drink, almost too easy. That's the problem. Sazerac rye never really surprises you. It doesn't climb, it doesn't punch. The spice stays polite, the body stays light, and the finish fades before the story finishes. In a Sazerac cocktail, it works beautifully. In a Manhattan, it's smooth and friendly, but neat, it rarely demands attention. This is a rye built for tradition, not thrill. And while that makes it incredibly useful behind a bar, it leaves it trailing behind bottles that bring more drama, more texture, and more personality to the glass. Number 12. Redwood Empire. Emerald Giant. Rye. Now, things start getting interesting. Emerald Giant feels like the first bottle in this list that actually wants to show you what rye can be. The aroma opens with fresh herbs, green apple, and black pepper, followed by the subtle forest-like note that somehow makes the name feel accurate. The palate is lively. Mint, clove, citrus peel, and a dry, snappy finish that reminds you why rye exists in the first place. It's bright, herbal, and unapologetically spicy. But here's where it stumbles slightly. The body runs lean. The finish, while clean, doesn't linger long enough to fully satisfy. In cocktails, it shines, especially in Manhattans where you want that sharp herbal lift. But neat, it sometimes feels like it leaves the party early. Emerald Giant earns its spot because it finally brings personality to the table. But compared to what's coming later, it lacks the richness and staying power that separate good rye from great rye. Number 11, Elijah Craig Straight. Rye. This is rye made by bourbon people, and you can taste that immediately. Elijah Craig rye leans warmer, rounder, and sweeter than most traditional ryes. Instead of pure pepper and herbs, you get baking spice, caramel, toasted sugar, and a soft vanilla backbone that feels very familiar if you live in bourbon country. The texture is smooth and comforting. The spice is present, but controlled. The finish carries cinnamon and oak without turning bitter. It's an easy pour, a relaxing pour. The kind of rye you drink while watching a game, not analyzing flavors. In cocktails, it performs beautifully. Old fashions become richer. Manhattans turn silkier. But as a rye showcase, it slightly blurs the line between rye and bourbon. That's why it stops here. Elijah Craig rye is excellent, but it's not boldly rye. It's rye with training wheels taken off, but bourbon DNA still showing. And from here on, the list belongs to bottles that fully embrace rye's wild, spicy, expressive soul. Number 10, High West Double Rye. This is where the list officially leaves the safe zone. High West Double Rye doesn't try to be polite. From the moment it hits the glass, it announces itself with mint, eucalyptus, cracked pepper, and that sharp green herbal note that reminds you rye once scared people on purpose. The first sip is bright and energetic, almost sparkling on the tongue, with cinnamon and clove racing ahead of a surprisingly clean finish. What makes double rye special is movement. The flavor changes as it travels. It starts spicy, turns slightly sweet, then finishes dry and refreshing. In cocktails, it's a cheat code. Manhattans suddenly feel taller. Boulevardiers gain tension. Even a simple rye and ginger wakes up. But the same intensity that makes it exciting also holds it back. Neat, the edges can feel narrow. The body is light. The finish, while crisp, sometimes leaves you wishing for more weight underneath the spice. This is a rye built for action, not contemplation. High West Double Rye earns its place because it finally brings electricity to the ranking. But the bottles above it don't just wake you up. They keep you thinking long after the sip is gone. Number 9, Old Forester 100 Proof. Rye. This bottle feels like it was designed by bartenders who got tired of apologizing for weak cocktails. Old Forester 100 Rye walks in confident, structured, and perfectly balanced. The aroma opens with floral spice and orange peel, followed by warm grain and toasted sugar. The first sip hits with pepper and cinnamon, then settles into a surprisingly creamy middle before ending clean and dry. What separates this rye is discipline. Nothing shouts, nothing hides. The flavors line up like they practiced. In a Manhattan, it stands tall against vermouth. In an old-fashioned, it doesn't vanish under sugar. It holds shape. It keeps structure. It behaves like a professional. But while it's excellent, it's also restrained. Neat, it's enjoyable, but not seductive. The spice is controlled. The sweetness is modest. You admire it more than you crave it. This is rye that earns respect, not obsession. Old Forester 100 Rye ranks here because it might be one of the best working ryes in America. Reliable, affordable, powerful enough to carry cocktails. But the ryes above it don't just perform well. They leave fingerprints on your memory. #8. Wild Turkey 101 Rye. Now the volume knob gets turned up. Wild Turkey 101 Rye doesn't whisper. It speaks with boots on hardwood floors. The nose brings smoky grain, dark honey, toasted oak, and sharp spice all at once. The first sip hits warm and bold, with black pepper, caramelized sugar, and a smoky edge that feels unapologetically old-fashioned. This rye has presence. The body is thicker. The heat is real. The finish hangs around long enough to make sure you noticed it. In cocktails, it refuses to be background noise. Old fashions become muscular. Manhattans grow teeth. This is rye for people who want their drink to talk back. Where it loses a little ground is refinement. The power sometimes outpaces the nuance. The smoke can edge toward rough. The spice can crowd out subtle sweetness. It's thrilling, but not always elegant. Wild Turkey 101 Rye earns its ranking because it delivers authenticity. This is rye that feels connected to its roots, loud, confident, and fearless. But the top tier combines strength with finesse, and that's where this bottle stops climbing. Number 7. Rittenhouse. Rye bottled in bond. If Rye had an Employee of the Month award, Rittenhouse would own the plaque. This bottle has built its reputation the hard way, by never failing anyone. Bottled in bond, 100 proof, aged properly, and designed to survive anything a bartender throws at it, Rittenhouse delivers spice, cocoa, toasted grain, and dark caramel in perfect working balance. The texture is the real secret. It's dense without being heavy, warm without burning. The mid-palate carries chocolate and cinnamon that linger just long enough to make the finish feel intentional, not rushed. In cocktails, it's nearly flawless. Manhattans become richer. Boulevardiers gain depth. Sazeracs finally taste complete. Neat, it's good. Very good. But it doesn't quite seduce. Rittenhouse is a master craftsman, not a showman. It performs beautifully, but it rarely surprises. You trust it, you respect it, you rely on it, but you don't always daydream about it. That's why it lands here. One of the greatest values in rye, one of the best cocktail foundations ever made, but just a step below the bottles that make you stop mid-sip and smile. Number 6. Sagamore Spirit. Rye. This is where elegance enters the room. Sagamore Spirit Rye feels different immediately. The aroma brings orange peel, honey, baking spice, and soft vanilla instead of sharp pepper. The first sip is smooth, layered, and surprisingly creamy, with cinnamon and caramel unfolding slowly across the tongue before drifting into a gentle, glowing finish. This rye is about harmony. Nothing fights for attention. Sweetness and spice move together. The texture feels polished. The alcohol stays in the background. Neat, it's dangerously easy to keep drinking. In cocktails, it adds silk instead of noise, turning Manhattans into velvet and old fashions into dessert-adjacent luxury. What holds Sagamore just outside the top 5 is intensity. At lower proof, the flavors sometimes play quietly. The spice never roars. The finish fades gracefully instead of dramatically. It's beautiful, but not commanding. Sagamore Spirit Rye earns its place because it proves rye doesn't have to be aggressive to be brilliant. This is refinement done right, and from here on, the list belongs to ryes that combine elegance with power and start flirting very seriously with greatness. Number 5, Michter's US1. Rye. This is the rye that smiles before it bites. Michter's US1 rye arrives soft and inviting, with honey, vanilla, and orange peel drifting out of the glass before the spice even wakes up. The first sip is silky, almost creamy, carrying cinnamon and toasted sugar with a gentle herbal echo underneath. Nothing rushes, nothing burns, it glides. What makes this bottle special is control. The flavors feel arranged, not accidental. Neat, it's dangerously easy to overpour. In cocktails, it brings elegance instead of aggression, turning Manhattan smooth and refined instead of sharp and edgy. But here's the trade-off. At lower proof, the drama stays muted. The spice never fully stretches its legs. The finish fades politely instead of leaving a signature. Michter's earns this spot because it's beautifully built rye, polished, balanced, and welcoming. But the bottles ahead don't just charm you, they command your attention. Number 4, Knob Creek. 10-year rye. Age changes everything, and this rye proves it. Knob Creek 10-year opens dark and confident, with oak, brown sugar, toasted nuts, and deep rye spice rolling together like they've had a decade to rehearse. The first sip brings warmth and weight, followed by waves of cinnamon, caramel, and charred wood that settle slowly instead of racing past. This whiskey has gravity. The body is thick. The finish stretches. The spice feels mature instead of sharp. Neat, it drinks like a quiet conversation with someone who knows more than you. In cocktails, it adds authority, making old fashions feel serious and Manhattans taste layered. What keeps it from the podium is energy. The oak sometimes dominates. The brightness stays restrained. It leans wise rather than wild. Knob Creek 10 earns its rank because it shows what time does to rye. Depth, richness, and composure. But the top 3 bring that same complexity. with far more electricity. Number 3, Pikesville Straight Rye. This is where rye stops being friendly and starts being impressive. Pikesville pours bold and unapologetic, carrying dark caramel, cocoa, pepper, and dried orange into the glass. The first sip hits thick and powerful, but instead of chaos, everything lines up. Spice, sweetness, oak, and heat moving together in perfect tension. This rye has muscle and manners. The texture coats your tongue. The finish glows for a long time, warming without turning bitter. In cocktails, it's a revelation. Manhattans suddenly taste like something you'd pay extra for. Old fashions finally stand up to sugar and bitters without losing shape. The only reason it isn't higher? Precision. Pikesville is phenomenal, but it plays within the lines. The top two don't. They flirt with danger. This bottle earns third place because it delivers power, depth, and balance in one confident pour. The moment rye starts feeling truly elite. Number 2, Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. Rye. Single barrel rye is gambling, and this one keeps paying out. Russell's Reserve opens layered and alive, with baking spice, dark fruit, vanilla, and toasted oak weaving together differently in every bottle. The first sip blooms slowly, unfolding pepper, cherry, caramel, and warm wood in waves that keep rearranging themselves. This rye has personality. The body feels full. The proof carries flavor instead of heat. The finish lingers with quiet confidence. Neat, it invites exploration. In cocktails, it elevates everything without stealing the spotlight. What makes it special is unpredictability. Some barrels lean sweeter, some go spicier, some bring smoke, others fruit. And when you land on a great one, it's unforgettable. It stops just short of the crown because consistency matters. Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye earns silver because when it's good, it's breathtaking. But the champion delivers that magic every single time. Number 1, Wild Turkey. Rare breed, rye. This is the rye that ends arguments. Rare breed rye arrives bold, aromatic, and fearless, throwing mint, black pepper, caramel, and toasted oak straight at your senses. The first sip explodes with spice and sweetness at once, thick and vibrant, then stretches into a long, glowing finish that refuses to leave quietly. This whiskey has everything: power without chaos, sweetness without syrup, heat without burn. Neat, it's thrilling. In cocktails, it dominates gracefully, turning simple drinks into statement pieces. What separates it from every other bottle is harmony at high proof. Nothing fights, nothing collapses. Every sip reveals something new. Clove here, citrus there, dark sugar underneath. Rare breed rye wins because it passes the ultimate test. The second pour tastes even better than the first. This isn't just the best rye on the list. This is rye at full volume, perfectly tuned.